The morning sun painted the rolling hills of New Eden Colony in shades of gold and green. Sister Maria Santos stood on the front porch of the Harmony Children's Home, watching 200 children play in the wide yard. Their laughter filled the air as they ran between the apple trees and flower gardens. "Sister Maria, look what I made." 10-year-old Jake Morrison ran up the steps holding a wooden toy spaceship. He had carved it himself in the workshop behind the main building. The boy had been at the orphanage for 3 years, ever since his parents died in a mining accident on Kepler Station. "That's wonderful, Jake," Maria smiled, taking the small ship in her hands. "You're getting better at woodworking every day." Jake beamed with pride. At 10 years old, he was one of the older children who helped take care of the younger ones. He taught reading to the 6-year-olds and helped them with their numbers. The boy had a gift for making the little ones feel safe when they missed their parents. Across the yard, 14-year-old Amy Foster worked in the vegetable garden with a group of younger children. She showed them how to pull weeds without hurting the plants. Amy had been at the home longer than anyone else. Her parents died when she was only 4 years old. Now she was like a big sister to all the other children. "Amy, the tomatoes are ready," called out 8-year-old Tim Brooks. He held up a red tomato, grinning widely. "Perfect timing," Amy laughed. "We can use those for lunch today." Ben Carter walked out of the main building carrying a box of books. The young man worked as a teacher and caretaker at the orphanage. He had studied to be a teacher on Earth before coming to New Eden to help Sister Maria. The children loved his stories about different planets and alien creatures. "New books arrived on yesterday's supply ship," Ben announced. The children gathered around him, excited to see what stories had come from Earth. Ben opened the box and pulled out picture books, adventure novels, and science texts. "Is there one about space pirates?" asked 9-year-old Kelly Davis, bouncing on her toes. "Let me see," Ben said, digging through the box. "Ah, here we go. Captain Storm and the Crystal Nebula." Kelly cheered and grabbed the book, running to find a quiet spot under her favorite tree. Lisa Park came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was the cook and nurse for the orphanage. The children called her Aunt Lisa, and she always had a warm hug ready for anyone who needed one. "Lunch will be ready in an hour," she called out. "Don't forget to wash your hands." The children groaned but started heading toward the wash stations. They knew Aunt Lisa's rules about clean hands before meals. She made the best food on New Eden Colony, and no one wanted to miss lunch. Sister Maria watched the children with a warm heart. Each one had lost their parents in different ways. Some died in space accidents when cargo ships broke down between planets. Others got sick from diseases that were hard to treat on frontier worlds. A few children lost their families when mining equipment failed or colony domes cracked. But here at Harmony Children's Home, they were safe and loved. The children learned to read and write. They played games and made friends. They grew vegetables and learned to build things with their hands. Most importantly, they learned that even though bad things happened, there were still good people in the universe who cared about them. The orphanage sat on a hill outside the main colony town. Below them, New Eden Colony spread across the valley, like a patchwork quilt. Farms covered the flat areas, growing food for the 20,000 people who lived there. The spaceport sat at the edge of town, where supply ships landed every few days. New Eden was a peaceful world. The colonists worked hard but lived good lives. They had clean air, fresh water, and rich soil for growing crops. Children played in safe streets while their parents worked in the fields or the small factories that made tools and clothes. The planet had no weapons or soldiers. They didn't need them. New Eden was far from any major space routes, and they had nothing that pirates or raiders would want. The Earth Defense Force sent a patrol ship through the system once a month, just to check that everything was okay. Captain Ryan Davis commanded the patrol ship UES Guardian. He was a kind man who always stopped by the orphanage when he visited New Eden. The children loved to hear his stories about other worlds and the ships he had seen. He brought them small gifts from different planets, colorful stones, strange shells, and pictures of alien animals. "When will Captain Davis come back?" asked little Sarah Kim. She was only 5 years old and had been at the orphanage for just 6 months. Her parents died when their research station lost power during a solar storm. "Soon, sweetheart. Sister Maria said, picking up the little girl. He should be here next week for his regular visit. The afternoon passed quietly. The children did their lessons with Ben and helped Lisa in the kitchen. The older ones worked in the workshop, learning to fix broken things and make useful items. The younger children napped or played quiet games. As evening came, the children gathered in the main hall for dinner, the long tables filled with talking and laughing as they shared their day's adventures. Jake told everyone about a bird's nest he found in the apple trees. Amy showed off the vegetables they had picked. Kelly acted out scenes from her new book about space pirates. After dinner, Ben read stories to the younger children while the older ones did homework or worked on projects. Sister Maria walked through the building, making sure everyone was safe and happy. She checked on the little ones, who sometimes had nightmares about losing their parents. "Sweet dreams, children," she said as she turned off the lights in each room. "Tomorrow will bring new adventures." Outside, the stars shone brightly in New Eden's clear sky. The children often sat on the porch at night, looking up at the distant suns and wondering what other worlds might be out there. They dreamed of the day they might travel to those stars and see the wonders of the galaxy. None of them knew that somewhere in the darkness between those stars, alien ships were moving toward their peaceful world. None of them could imagine that some creatures in the universe thought human children were just targets to be destroyed. For now, the children of Harmony slept safely in their beds, protected by the love of those who cared for them and the innocence of their dreams. The warning sirens began screaming at dawn. Sister Maria woke up to the horrible sound that meant danger was coming. She had never heard the emergency alarms before, but every colonist knew what they meant. She jumped out of bed and ran to wake the other adults. "Ben, Lisa, get up now," she shouted, banging on their doors. "Emergency!" Ben Carter stumbled out of his room, still half asleep. "What's happening?" "I don't know, but we need to get the children to safety," Maria said, her heart racing. Through the windows, she could see bright lights moving across the sky. They looked like shooting stars, but shooting stars didn't move in straight lines. Lisa, Park ran down the hallway, already dressed. "Those are ships," she said, pointing at the lights. "Alien ships." The children started waking up from the noise. The little ones began crying, scared by the sirens and the panic in the adults' voices. The older children tried to comfort them, but they were frightened too. "Everyone listen to me," Sister Maria called out in her strongest voice. "We're going to play a game. We need to go down to the basement as fast as we can. The first one there wins a prize." Jake Morrison understood right away that this wasn't really a game. He had heard the adults talking about emergency plans before. He picked up 5-year-old Sarah Kim and started walking toward the basement stairs. "Come on, Sarah. Let's go win that prize," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. Amy Foster helped gather the other children. "Everyone hold hands," she said. "We're going to stay together just like we always do." The basement of the orphanage was built to be a safe room. It had thick walls, extra food and water, and its own air system. The Earth Defense Force had required all buildings on frontier worlds to have safe rooms in case of emergencies. Ben and Lisa rushed the children down the stairs, while Sister Maria grabbed the emergency radio. She tried to call the colony's main office, but only static came through the speakers. "Colony base, this is Harmony Children's Home. Please respond," she said into the radio. No one answered. Above them, the alien ships dropped out of hyperspace, like hungry wolves. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking down at the green planet below. The Zalakian Empire had been watching human expansion for years, and their leaders decided it was time to teach these new creatures a lesson. "Begin the attack," Vextar ordered. His scaled face showed no emotion as he gave the command to destroy innocent lives. The Zalakian ships opened fire with energy weapons that could melt steel. The colony's small buildings exploded into flames. The spaceport disappeared in a ball of fire. Farms turned into smoking craters. Captain Ryan Davis was 3 hours away when his ship's sensors detected the attack. The UES Guardian immediately changed course toward New Eden, but Davis knew he would be too late to stop what was happening. "Emergency speed," he ordered his crew. "Send a distress signal to Earth Defense Command." Back in the orphanage basement, the children huddled together. As the building shook from explosions outside, the lights flickered and dust fell from the ceiling. "It's okay," Sister Maria said, trying to sound brave. "The basement is very strong. We're safe down here." Little Tim Brooks started crying. "I want my mommy," he sobbed. Amy Foster pulled him close. "I know, sweetie, but we're all here together. We're your family now." The bombing continued for hours. Each explosion made the children jump and cry. Ben told stories to distract them, while Lisa shared out snacks and water. Sister Maria prayed quietly that someone would come to help them. Jake Morrison noticed a small radio in the corner of the room. It was connected to an emergency beacon that could send signals to space. He crawled over to it and started pressing buttons, trying to remember what Ben had taught them about emergency equipment. "What are you doing, Jake?" Amy whispered. "Trying to call for help," Jake said. His small fingers worked on the controls until a green light came on. The beacon was working. Outside, the Zalakian ground troops landed near the colony. These soldiers were different from the ones in the ships. They walked on two legs like humans, but their skin was covered in gray scales and their eyes were yellow like a snake's. The Zalakians had orders to make sure no humans survived. Their leaders wanted to send a message to Earth that humans should stop expanding into space. They thought that killing children would make humans too scared to build new colonies. The alien soldiers moved through the burning town, checking every building. Most of the colonists had died in the bombing, but the soldiers shot anyone they found still alive. When they reached the orphanage, the building was badly damaged but still standing. The soldiers used their scanners and detected life signs in the basement. "Human young ones," one soldier reported to his commander. "Should we capture them?" "No," the commander replied. "Orders are to eliminate all humans. No survivors." The soldiers began cutting through the basement door with laser tools. Sister Maria heard the horrible sound of metal being melted and knew their time was running out. "Children, we need to move to the back of the room," she said quietly. The older children understood what was happening. They gathered the little ones and moved as far from the door as possible. Jake kept working on the radio beacon, trying to send one last message. "This is Jake Morrison at Harmony Children's Home," he whispered into the radio. "Bad aliens are here. They hurt everyone. Please help the little kids if you can." The basement door exploded inward. Zalakian soldiers poured into the room, their yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. They pointed their weapons at the terrified children. Sister Maria stepped in front of the children, spreading her arms wide. "Please," she begged. "They're just babies. They never hurt anyone." The Zalakian commander looked at her with cold eyes. "Human young grow up to be threats," he said in broken English. "Better to eliminate them now." The children pressed against the back wall, holding each other tight. Little Sarah Kim buried her face in Jake's shoulder. Amy Foster stood protectively, in front of the smallest children. "Don't be scared," Jake whispered to Sarah. "We'll be with our mommies and daddies soon." The Zalakian weapons charged up with a whining sound. Sister Maria closed her eyes and prayed for the souls of her children. The basement filled with light and heat. Then everything went silent. Captain Davis arrived at New Eden 6 hours later to find a world covered in smoke and fire. His rescue team searched through the ruins, hoping to find survivors. When they reached the orphanage, they found the basement, door blown open and scorch marks on the walls. Inside, they discovered what the monsters had done. 200 children and their caretakers lay still on the basement floor. The smallest ones were still holding hands. Captain Davis knelt beside Jake Morrison's body and found the emergency radio still clutched in the boy's hand. The last message was still recorded in the device's memory. With tears streaming down his face, Davis sent an urgent message to Earth Defense Command. "New Eden colony destroyed. Harmony Children's Home attacked. All children dead. They executed babies." The message reached Earth 12 hours later. When the leaders of humanity learned what had happened to the children of New Eden, something changed in the human soul forever. The news reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Patricia Wells was drinking coffee in her office at Defense Command when the urgent message came through. She read Captain Davis's report once, then read it again. Her hands began to shake. They killed children, she whispered to herself. They lined up babies and shot them. She immediately called President Nathan Clark. Sir, we need an emergency meeting. Something terrible has happened. Within an hour, every leader of the United Earth government sat in the crisis room. The video from New Eden played on the main screen. Images of the destroyed orphanage filled the room. The rescue teams had recorded everything. The basement, the small bodies, the children's toys scattered in the ruins. President Clark watched the footage with his jaw clenched tight. He was a father of 3, and seeing the murdered children made his blood boil. How many? He asked quietly. 200 children, Admiral Wells replied. Ages 4 to 16, plus their caretakers. Who did this? The Zalakian Empire. Our intelligence says Admiral Vextar commanded the attack personally. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the images of Jake Morrison still holding little Sarah Kim, even in death. The picture of Amy Foster lying protectively over the smallest children. Sister Maria with her arms spread wide, trying to shield them until the very end. They thought this would scare us, President Clark said, his voice growing hard. They thought killing our children would make us weak. He stood up and looked around the room at the other leaders. They were wrong. Within hours, the images from New Eden were broadcast across every human world. People gathered around screens in homes, shops, and offices. They watched in stunned silence as they saw what aliens had done to innocent children. On Mars, factory workers stopped their machines and stood with tears in their eyes. On Luna Base, miners came up from deep tunnels to see the news. On distant colonies at the edge of space, farmers and settlers looked at their own children and felt rage building in their hearts. The response was unlike anything in human history. Corporate executives who had spent decades fighting each other suddenly called meetings to work together. The Luna shipyards, Mars Industrial Complex, and Titan Manufacturing immediately stopped all civilian production. Every factory, every assembly line, every worker would now build weapons and ships for war. Dr. Kevin Zhang received a call at his secret laboratory on Europa. He was the head of the Prometheus Project, humanity's most classified weapons program. For 20 years, his team had developed weapons that pushed the limits of physics and engineering. Doctor, this is President Clark. You have unlimited authorization. Whatever you've been working on, I want it ready for combat in 6 months. Sir, some of these weapons are still experimental. Doctor, they killed 200 children. I don't care if your weapons are experimental. I want them ready to kill aliens. Zhang looked at his team of scientists and engineers. They had heard the news too. Many of them had children of their own. You heard the president, Zhang said. We work around the clock from now on. No breaks, no vacations, no limits. These monsters want to see what humans can do when we're angry. Colonel Sandra Hayes commanded Earth's Special Forces. She put out a call for volunteers for deep strike missions against alien targets. She expected maybe a few hundred responses. Instead, over 50,000 people volunteered in the first day. Soldiers, pilots, engineers, medics, everyone wanted to fight. Many sold their homes and possessions to buy their own equipment. Others quit high-paying jobs to join the military for almost no pay. I have 3 kids, said one volunteer, a former cargo pilot named Matt Stone. When I saw those pictures from New Eden, I knew I had to do something. Those could have been my children. The alien races that lived near human space started getting worried. They had always seen humans as a young species that was not very dangerous. Humans traded fairly, negotiated peacefully, and seemed more interested in farming than fighting. But now something had changed. Human ships were moving through space with a purpose that scared their neighbors. Messages intercepted from human. World spoke of Total War Protocol and Species Response Condition 1. Admiral Vextar sat in his command center, reading intelligence reports about human activity. His officers brought him updates every hour, and each report made him more uncomfortable. Admiral, human ship production has increased by 800%, one officer reported. What kind of ships? Vextar asked. Unknown design, sir. Our spies cannot get close enough to the shipyards, but they are big ships. Very big. Another officer stepped forward. Sir, we're also detecting massive movements of raw materials. Every human mining operation is shipping metals and rare elements toward Earth and their major colonies. Vextar studied the star charts on his screen. Red markers showed human activity across dozens of systems. They're mobilizing their entire species, he realized. Should we attack them again before they're ready? An officer suggested. No, Vextar said, slowly. We may have made a mistake. Send a message to the Empire Council. Tell them the humans are responding more strongly than we expected. But it was too late for second thoughts. Across human space, the machinery of war was already building momentum that could not be stopped. On Earth, President Clark addressed the United Nations and broadcast his speech to every human world. Behind him stood a holographic memorial showing the faces of all 200 murdered children. Citizens of humanity, he began, his voice calm but filled with steel. 5 days ago, an alien empire called the Zalakians attacked one of our colonies. They did not attack our military bases or our government buildings. They did not even attack our mines or factories. The president paused, letting his words sink in. They attacked an orphanage. They murdered 200 children whose only crime was being human. The anger in his voice grew stronger. The Zalakians thought this would make us afraid. They thought we would stop expanding into space if they showed us how cruel they could be to our young ones. Clark stepped closer to the camera. They were wrong. Humanity does not bow to those who hurt our children. We do not negotiate with child killers. We do not show mercy to those who show none. His next words would be remembered for centuries. The Zalakian Empire has shown us who they are. Now we will show them who we are. Today I am authorizing Total War Protocol. Every resource, every factory, every ship will be dedicated to one purpose: the complete destruction of the Zalakian Empire. The speech ended with a promise that sent chills through every alien civilization that heard it. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson about fear. Instead, they will learn what happens when you make the wrong species angry. Across human space, the largest war machine in galactic history began to wake up, and at its heart burned the memory of 200 children who would never see another sunrise. 6 months after the massacre, humanity revealed its true power. The UES Retribution emerged from the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt like a metal mountain coming to life. The massive dreadnought was 5 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that had never been seen before. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on its bridge looking out at the fleet she now commanded. 50 other warships floated around the Retribution. Each one was built with technology from the Prometheus project. Each one carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. Each one had the faces of the murdered children painted on its hull. All ships report ready for combat, her communications officer announced. Good, Admiral Wells said. Send a message to the Zalakian Empire, tell them we're coming. The first human attack hit the Zalakian border stations without warning. The aliens expected normal space weapons, missiles, lasers, and kinetic rounds. Instead, they faced technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. The human plasma. Lances fired beams of contained starfire that melted through Zalakian shields like they were made of paper. The quantum torpedoes phased through solid armor and exploded inside enemy ships. Gravity bombs created miniature black holes that crushed space stations into tiny balls of metal. Commander Zektar watched his border fortress disappear in seconds. What kind of weapons are these? He screamed into his radio. But there was no one left to answer. His entire defensive line had been destroyed in less than an hour. Colonel Sandra Hayes led the Special Forces unit called the Orphan's Blade. They specialized in finding and eliminating Zalakian commanders. Her soldiers were volunteers who had lost family members to alien attacks, and they fought with a fury that terrified their enemies. Target confirmed, Hayes whispered into her radio as she watched Admiral Kevtar's command ship through her scope. Beginning infiltration, her team used stealth technology that made them invisible to Zalakian sensors. They slipped aboard enemy ships like ghosts, moving through corridors without making a sound. When they found their targets, they broadcast images of the murdered children before pulling the trigger. This is for Jake Morrison, Hayes said as she aimed at the alien admiral. "This is for Sarah Kim. This is for Amy Foster." Kevtar barely had time to see the pictures of human children before the rifle beam ended his life. The Zalakian Empire tried to fight back, but they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Human fleets appeared in dozens of systems at the same time. Each attack was perfectly coordinated, as if humanity had an unlimited number of ships and soldiers. The truth was even more frightening. Humanity had been building in secret for decades. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts, secret weapons factories on distant moons, mothballed fleets waiting in deep space. When the children of New Eden died, all of these resources came online at once. General Marcus Stone commanded the human ground forces. His job was to invade and occupy every Zalakian world that had supported the attack on New Eden. He approached this task with the methodical efficiency of an accountant and the merciless determination of an avenging angel. "We will take every planet they control," Stone told his officers. "We will capture every leader, every soldier, every person who had anything to do with killing those children." The invasion of Zalakian Prime took 3 days. Human Marines landed on the capital world with weapons and equipment that made the defenders look like primitive savages. Powered armor that could survive direct hits from energy cannons, robots that could think and fight like human soldiers, weapons that fired bullets made of compressed matter. The Zalakian military collapsed in hours. Their soldiers surrendered or ran. Their generals begged for mercy that would never come. Admiral Vextar, the Butcher of New Eden, watched the human assault from his command bunker deep underground. His scales had turned pale with fear as he listened to reports of his empire's destruction. "Sir, they're demanding our surrender," his communications officer reported. "What are their terms?" Vextar asked. "Unconditional. They want every person involved in the New Eden attack to be handed over for trial." Vextar knew what that meant. The humans would execute him and everyone who had followed his orders. But what choice did he have? His empire was falling apart around him. Captain Ryan Davis, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the memorial construction on New Eden. Where the Harmony Children's Home had once stood, human engineers built a crystal monument that reached toward Tiur, the sky. Inside the crystal, they preserved the rooms where the children had lived and played. "Each child will be remembered," Davis said as he watched the construction crews work. "Their names, their faces, their dreams. None of it will be forgotten." The memorial also served another purpose. It was a warning to the galaxy that humanity would never again allow such a crime to go unpunished. Other alien civilizations watched the destruction of the Zalakian Empire with growing alarm. The Korthak Hegemony, the Vegan Trade Federation, and the Crystal Collective all sent urgent diplomatic messages to Earth. "We wish to establish peaceful relations with humanity." Each message said in different words, "We condemn the Zalakian attack on your children." President Clark met with the alien ambassadors in the rebuilt United Nations building. Behind his desk hung a large picture showing all 200 children who had died on New Eden. "Peace is what we wanted from the beginning," Clark told them. "We never asked to fight a war. We just wanted to raise our children in safety and build new homes among the stars." He gestured to the picture behind him. "But when someone attacks our young, when they murder innocent children, they discover that humanity has another side, a side that will hunt them across the galaxy until justice is done." The alien ambassadors looked at the picture of the children and shuddered. They had all heard the reports from Zalakian space. Entire fleets destroyed in minutes. Planets conquered in days. An empire that had ruled for centuries reduced to smoking ruins in less than a year. "We understand," the Korthak ambassador said quietly. "Your children will never be harmed by our people." "Good," Clark replied, "because if they are, you will face the same fate as the Zalakians." The war continued for another year, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human forces methodically hunted down every Zalakian who had participated in the massacre. Some tried to hide on distant worlds, others changed their identities and fled to neutral space. It didn't matter. Humanity had infinite patience and unlimited resources. The Orphan's blade found them all. Admiral Vextar was captured trying to escape in a stolen cargo ship, Colonel Hayes personally arrested him as he begged for mercy. "Please," he whimpered. "I was just following orders." Hayes looked at him with cold eyes. "So were the children when you ordered them killed," she said. "The difference is they were innocent." As the second anniversary of the New Eden massacre approached, the last Zalakian resistance finally collapsed. Their empire was gone, their leaders captured or dead, their people scattered to refugee camps on distant worlds. Admiral Wells stood in the same command center where President Clark had first announced Total War Protocol. The war was over, but the memory of what started it would never fade. "Mission accomplished," she reported to Earth. "The Zalakian Empire no longer exists." The response came back immediately. "Understood. The children can rest in peace." 2 years after the massacre, Admiral Vextar knelt in chains before a human tribunal. The courtroom was built on New Eden Colony, just a kilometer from where the Harmony Children's Home had stood. The judges sat behind a long table, with pictures of all 200 murdered children displayed on the wall behind them. Judge Catherine Moore looked down at the alien who had ordered the death of innocents. Vextar's scales had turned gray with age and fear. His yellow eyes darted around the room looking for mercy he would not find. "Admiral Vextar of the former Zalakian Empire," Judge Moore began. "You stand accused of ordering the systematic murder of 200 human children and their caretakers. How do you plead?" Vextar's translator device converted his words into English. "I plead for mercy. I was following the orders of my government." "The same mercy you showed to 4-year-old Sarah Kim?" Judge Moore asked. "The same mercy you showed to 10-year-old Jake Morrison?" As she spoke each name, a picture appeared on the screen behind her. Sarah Kim smiling as she played with her toy spaceship. Jake Morrison teaching reading to the younger children. Amy Foster working in the garden. One by one, all 200 faces looked down at their killer. Vextar could not meet their eyes. "They were enemies of the Empire," he whispered. "They were children," Judge Moore replied. "Innocent children who never hurt anyone." The trial lasted 3 days. Witnesses testified about what they found in the basement of the orphanage. Captain Davis described discovering the small bodies still holding hands. Rescue workers broke down as they remembered the children's rooms, with toys and books scattered by the explosions. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings from Zalakian ships showed Vextar giving the orders. "Eliminate all humans," his voice said clearly. "No survivors, especially the young ones." On the final day, Judge Moore delivered the verdict that everyone expected. "Admiral Vextar, this tribunal finds you guilty of crimes against humanity. You ordered the murder of innocent children for no reason except their species. There can be no forgiveness for such evil." She paused, looking at the pictures of the children one more time. "You are sentenced to life in prison, where you will remain until you die. You will spend every day remembering the faces of the children you killed. And when you die, you will be forgotten, while they will be remembered forever." Vextar was led away in chains. He would spend his remaining years in a cell on Luna Base, staring at pictures of his victims that covered every wall. The trials of other Zalakian war criminals continued for months. Every soldier, every officer, every politician who had supported the attack was hunted down and brought to justice. Some were executed, others received life sentences. All were marked forever as child killers. But the trials were only part of humanity's response. The real change was happening across the galaxy. President Clark stood before the United Earth Assembly to announce the new reality. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human world, along with ambassadors from dozens of alien species. "Citizens of humanity and friends from other worlds," Clark began. 2 years ago, an alien empire made a terrible mistake. They thought they could terrorize us by murdering our children. They thought we would become afraid and stop expanding into space." He gestured to the memorial wall, where the names of all 200 children were carved in black stone. "Instead, they taught us something important. They taught us that some crimes can never be forgiven. They taught us that those who harm the innocent must face consequences. Most importantly, they taught us that humanity will never again be unprepared to protect our young. Clark announced the creation of the Guardian Fleet, 500 warships stationed throughout human space, ready to respond to any threat within hours. Each ship was named after one of the murdered children. The UES Jake Morrison would patrol the frontier colonies. The UES Sarah Kim would guard the trade routes. The UES Amy Foster would protect the agricultural worlds. All 200 ships would carry the memory of the children and the promise that such a tragedy would never happen again. Dr. Kevin Zhang revealed some of the weapons that had destroyed the Zalakian Empire. The plasma lance technology would be shared with friendly alien races. The defensive shields would protect colony worlds. The quantum sensors would detect any military buildup long before it became a threat. We share this technology not to threaten anyone, Zhang explained to the alien ambassadors, but to make sure everyone understands the cost of harming human children. Colonel Hayes stood in the cemetery on New Eden where Sister Maria Santos, Ben Carter, and Lisa Park were buried. Their graves were surrounded by flowers that the surviving colonists brought every day. "We kept our promise," Hayes said quietly, to the headstones. "Every one of them paid for what they did to your children. The Orphan's Blade had completed their mission. Every Zalakian involved in the massacre was either dead or in prison. The unit was officially disbanded, but Hayes knew that if humanity's children were ever threatened again, warriors would rise to defend them." Admiral Wells retired to a small house on Earth, where she tended a garden and wrote letters to the families of soldiers who had died in the war. She had fulfilled her oath to avenge the children, but the weight of command had aged her beyond her years. Was it worth it? A reporter asked her during her last interview. Wells looked at a picture on her desk showing Jake Morrison and Sarah Kim playing together in the orphanage yard. 200 children are dead, she said simply. Their killers are gone. Their deaths are avenged. Ask me if it was worth it when human children can sleep safely again. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about humanity. Other species now understood that humans were not the peaceful farmers and traders they had seemed to be. They were something far more dangerous, a species that would go to war to protect their young. The Korthak hegemony issued strict orders that no human children were ever to be harmed. The Vegan Trade Federation made it a capital crime to threaten human families. The Crystal Collective created special diplomatic protocols for dealing with human anger. Never make them choose between their children and anything else, the Alien Ambassador Training Manual warned. They will always choose their children, and they will destroy you for making them choose. Admiral Davis, now commander of the new Eden Memorial Fleet, stood in the crystal monument where the orphanage had been. Inside the preserved rooms, holographic children played eternal games. Jake Morrison taught reading to younger kids. Amy Foster worked in her garden. Sarah Kim laughed as she played with her toys. "They're still here," Davis said to the visitors who came from across the galaxy to see the memorial. "Their bodies are gone, but their spirits live on in every human child who plays safely because of what we learned from their sacrifice." The final ceremony took place on the 5th anniversary of the massacre. President Clark, now an old man, returned to New Eden one last time. He walked through the memorial, touching the names carved in crystal. Jake Morrison, he read aloud. Age, 10, loved teaching and woodworking. Sarah Kim, age 5, dreamed of visiting other planets. Amy Foster, age 14, took care of everyone around her. One by one, he read all 200 names. Each child was remembered not just as a victim, but as a person who had lived and loved and dreamed. As the sun set over New Eden Colony, Clark delivered his final speech as president. These children died because evil beings thought they could scare humanity by hurting our most innocent. They were wrong. Instead of making us weak, they made us stronger. Instead of making us afraid, they made us vigilant. Instead of making us retreat, they made us determined to build a safer galaxy for all children. He looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. The children of New Eden are gone, but they are not forgotten. Every human child who grows up safe is their legacy. Every parent who tucks their child into bed without fear is proof that their sacrifice meant something. Clark's voice grew strong. One final time. And every species in this galaxy now knows the truth. Humanity's children are protected by the greatest military force that has ever existed. Not because we love war, but because we love our children more than we fear anything else in the universe. The ceremony ended with the lighting of the eternal flame that burned in the center of the memorial. Its light would shine forever, a beacon that said to the galaxy, "Here lies love, here lies innocence, here lies the reason why humanity will never surrender." As the years passed, the names Jake Morrison, Sarah Kim, and Amy Foster became known throughout human space. New colonies named their first schools after the children. Young parents told bedtime stories about the brave kids who helped protect all the children who came after them. And on quiet nights, when human children looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there in the dark, their parents would tell them the truth. That good people had made sure the monsters could never hurt them. The children of humanity could dream safely because 200 angels watched over them from among the stars.